Is AI generated art bad? Is it bad for artists? Is it a bad tool to use? Is it ethically bad? Well, let's delve in. I'm just going to preface this with that it is my opinion as somebody in the industry that is doing 3D art full time. I think I understand the subject well enough to be able to weigh in with my opinion and some guidance to those out there that are worrying about the future of where this is all going to head. So we can't really talk about this subject without really understanding a little bit about what AI actually means within the context of generating AI imagery. Because some will argue that AI generated images are not part of an actual artificial intelligence and they are merely taking things that exist and adapting them in different ways. But AI generated images are so much more sophisticated than that. But in short, they are often trained with machine learning or deep learning methods, which are a subform of what AI actually is. So if we look at machine learning, that is an AI that adapts without much human interference, but deep learning is a kind of subset of that. It kind of tries to mimic the way that a human brain will try and learn about the world around it. So if we take Stable Diffusion, which is one of the main tools used to generate AI imagery today, we're talking about something that was trained using deep learning. Stable Diffusion was trained on the Lion 5B dataset, and like the name suggests, that means it was trained on over 5 billion clip-filtered image and text pairs. And because of how unfathomably large that data set that it was trained on is, you can begin to understand how you can get a completely unique result when you're using a text prompt to generate a new image. Let's summarize how we train a model to produce new images then, based on those image text pairs. Well, the text helps the AI understand where in latent space that idea or concept exists, so it can understand the shapes and forms of that particular item. Then we add noise to a control image and say, I want you to denoise that back to the original, but we don't show them that original, we just then compare the end results. And we add more and more noise to that image until we're left with just pure random mathematical noise. And then we say, denoise that, please. It's almost like decoding a message. And because it doesn't really have any information in that random noise to decode anything from it, we get a very unique, strange result. But the more we train the AI to understand what we're asking for, in this case, an image of a cat, we can get more and more accurate results out of it, especially when our data set is bigger. So if 100,000 of the Lion 5B dataset, for example, contained images of cats, it's probably a lot more knowing the internet, then it has a lot of information to learn about that dataset. And because of its deep learning nature, using neural networks, being very similar to a human brain's way of learning, then we can get results that are very, very convincing. So when you enter in a text prompt to one of these tools, you can kind of pull the AI into different directions using that random pattern of noise that it has generated to create something brand new based on what it understands. Now, the AI is only as good as the data that you are providing it to train on. So if you show it terrible pieces of art, the work it produces is obviously going to look terrible. But that's not what people are doing. They are taking art from everywhere without artists' consent and using it to train these models. And that is where the unethical aspect comes into it. Don't even talk about deepfakes, because those are an entirely different kettle of fish. Unless it's an obvious parody of the person, they can be used for very, very exploitative pieces of content. But let's just take a step back a second and remember that this AI learns very similarly to the way a human brain is learning about the world with its neural network. And therefore, if you were to lock me in a room for my entire life for whatever reason, you'd never shown me what an apple looks like. But then you ask me to draw an apple. Well, of course, I'm going to have no idea what an apple is or even be able to fathom the concept. And it's the same thing with these neural networked AI deep learning algorithms, because if you don't show them what you're asking it to create, it of course will have zero understanding of that. But that data set, Lion 5B, because of its unfiltered nature, it also contains some extremely disturbing content. So it scrapes the internet and finds things like photoshopped celebrity pornographic imagery and non-consensual pornographic imagery, ISIS beheadings, graphic stuff that nobody should ever really see, but it's on the internet. And to be honest, anybody could go looking for it if they really, really wanted to. But it doesn't mean that it is morally or ethically correct to contain that within a data-driven model. But that is the unfiltered nature of these algorithms and how they work so well in understanding what we're asking them to do, because we are not controlling that aspect. So in short, yes, we can call AI generated images AI because they are a form of AI, namely deep learning, which does teach the machine to mimic the way a human brain processes the world. The same way we might call AI in video games AI, even though it's not really that intelligent, it's merely following a set of instructions we tell it to do, namely, if the player is within this cone of vision, shoot them. If you suddenly lose sight of the player, go looking for where you last saw them. If you can't find them, go back to your idle pose or walking around. That is a set of instructions, but when you put that within the world of the game, you get this emergent complexity out of that. So if we take the data set that large that was used on Stable Diffusion, it obviously contains some extremely sensitive content, but it is only experiencing the world that is freely available online to view. And that is kind of the way we learn as well, albeit subconsciously. So if you ask me to draw a picture of a mountain landscape, I will draw the best mountain landscape that I can, and you will think that it is completely original to me, which it kind of is. But I'm basing that on things I've both seen in photos, seen in real life, and therefore it's going to be unique to my personal experience. That's what makes art special. It's always unique to the person's individual experience of the world and what they understand around it. Because of the fact that the AI is decoding random noise based on what it has learned about the world, the results are so much unlike the original data that it is its own thing. If you were to take an artist's work of, say, 100 images and train a model on just that, well, that is where it gets a little bit unethical, because you are doing something that completely restricts the AI into producing something very, very similar to what you are asking it for and nothing more. If you enter in an artist's name and all of the clip image pairs are works of that artist or people trying to copy that artist, you're going to get results that are very similar to what that artist might create. That is where it becomes a little bit of a slippery slope, and you can understand why artists like the ones on ArtStation don't want their art used in algorithms like this, and they don't want to see art like that on the platform. Speaking of ArtStation, they are beginning to listen to the people that are using the platform, albeit not in the best approach. They've added a no AI tag, and people are still protesting on the platform that that tag should be added by default, or at least something should be done by default so that it enables the artist to protect the work that they post without having to manually enter a tag. And I think that is a good idea. However, I do think, and this is probably quite a controversial opinion, that ArtStation should have added a section to support AI generated imagery on their platform so that it can be completely separate from all of the traditional and legitimate pieces of art that people have actually spent time and talent creating. This tool, like any other tool, needs to be used responsibly, and it's on us to know what to look out for when we notice people doing things wrong. It's going to completely change the way the industry operates. People like me are going to be using this tool to put new materials on environmental objects, or even environmental objects themselves. Will just type in a prompt and boom, it'll generate us an image similar to the Nerf technology that's going around at the moment and getting better day by day. But don't worry, this technology is not going to replace things that exist now. Most of us carry around smartphones in our pockets every day. We can take a picture instantly of our beloved pet and have it come out beautiful and have the background automatically blur. That's done with other algorithms, by the way. And then we can say, okay, I'll frame that and put it on the wall. But a lot of people don't do that. They'll send the picture that they've taken to somebody they know that is an incredible artist and maybe have that painted so then they can put it on the wall. But why is that when we've got access to these cameras in our pockets? Well, it turns out that people really like when an artist has spent time, energy, and talent to create a beautiful image of what they've asked for. It has more sentimental value. It's tactile, you can see it, you can relate to it. If something has run through an algorithm and generated a picture for you, it doesn't mean as much. And that's why traditional artists are still just as relevant today as they were 100 years ago. And that's going to be the way it stays. There's going to be the right tool for the job. It's not going to be, this is the tool for all the jobs. It just will not work like that. It never has. It never will. Radio still exists when Spotify exists in the same world. And that's because they serve different purposes, as well as video games and board games. Board games are a bonding thing around a single place on the table. You can feel it, it's there. You can bond with family, you can have a good time in a physical space. Whereas video games, well, they're brilliant. They connect us from across the world, but they don't feel as intimate as something like a family board game would. So again, different purposes. Another point is this technology is going to continue to exist and we have to embrace it in the right way. We can't use it to abuse other artists or create content that is going to demean or create false information. It has to be legislated, but that is going to take a long time, especially since the copyright law hasn't been able to keep up with the way we all operate on a daily basis for years now. You only have to look at what's happened here on this platform and the YouTubers that have had to fight for their fair use. I think about H3H3, that whole thing back then when they had to say, well, we're providing commentary and parody to these video clips and it's fair use, it's transformative content. But it is a scary place and we have to wait for law and legislation to catch up. I'll use cameras as another example. We all have cameras on our person and we even have them in our cars and we can film dashcam footage freely, legally, and that's totally okay because it's in a public place and it's to protect your personal property and your safety. But if you were to take that camera into, I don't know, a public restroom, even though it is technically a public place, it is still within a private area. And that is basically going to land you in serious trouble if you start filming in restrooms and things like that. It's just against human rights and privacy. Hello, Future Sean here. I must correct myself. You can film, sorry, that was my dinner, in a public restroom as long as you are following the strict procedures under the Data Protection Act. So eventually, these tools will be treated in very much the same way that a lot of modern technology is treated, where it is governed and looked after by proper legislation. Until that point though, we can only do our best to educate and make sure people use these tools in a respectful and considerate way. Get on board with this technology because it's going to keep evolving and changing, and the sooner that you can understand it and get on board with it, the safer you will be within your career path, because you can use something like this tool to take time out of what you would have otherwise been spending on one thing and put that into a brand new area of your project. It is very difficult to embrace tools like this that feel like they're taking away from what is so special to us as human beings in the fact that we can express ourselves through creative avenues. People will say that it devalues art, and in some senses, you can definitely understand why they think that. Remember, these tools would not exist without the skilled people behind them, and I'm not just talking about the developers, I'm talking about the people that actually produce the amazing looking artwork that these AI tools use to train what they understand art should look like. And the reason it doesn't devalue art, if a human still is able to paint something that looks absolutely incredibly realistic, even if we compare that to AI, we can still be blown away by, oh my God, a human has done that. It is an extremely difficult thing to understand, but we have to embrace these tools while respecting the people that made them possible in the first place. We have to do what we can to try and limit the amount of people that use these tools to maliciously target groups of artists, training their models to produce artwork that looks eerily close to something unique to that artist. Industries will always have this moment of panic when a new technology comes along and seeks to change the game. You can look at radio and TV as two classic examples where all of a sudden, why would anybody want to listen to radio when they can watch TV that also has sound? Well, it turns out that there's a use case for both types of media, and this is a new tool that seeks to create a new way of generating content. The way that it should be used at the moment, in my opinion, is to just generate brand new ideas. If you're a concept artist, you absolutely need to look at this technology. For example, I know somebody in the industry who's using these tools to generate ideas in a commercial setting to then go on and refine later with their artistic talents. It should also be mentioned that these models take a lot of money and time to train, and that is why there are huge companies backing this kind of operation and training up their own AI models, spending thousands of their currency on this kind of technology. We need to do our best to look out for those that are deliberately exploiting artists' work to produce new content, but don't attack people that are using these tools for their own benefit. As much as it pains me to say it, we are all creative beings, be it using this tool or using more traditional methods. It is just another tool to generate ideas faster and to tell bigger and more interesting stories than ever before. But I think one of the main takeaways from today's discussion is realizing that these tools are here to stay, whether we like it or not. It's knowing when to use them and how to use them respectfully, and that they can coexist in a world where digital painting and physical pencil work exists to create art, ideas, and concepts, and the way entertainment industries both use television and theatre to tell stories, how puppets and CGI exist to bring characters to life, how letters and texting exist to communicate in different ways. All of these things exist. We need to use them respectfully. And with all of that, happy creating, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening or day. For me, it's evening. Have a good one, take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.